Aloha! This is State Representative Bob McDermott coming to you from the Capitol with a hero, in my opinion. A crusader for the kids, a crusader for sustainable and livable learning environment, Mr. Corey Rosenlee from Campbell High School. Corey, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Corey has been out in the wilderness leading the charge, and I admire what he's done. He's been leading the charge for air conditioning in our schools to help the kids have a learning environment where they can actually learn and not fall asleep at their desk. And I'm going to ask Corey a lot of questions today about the conditions at Campbell High School, what's needed, where we can go from here, because right now he's drawn attention to it, but now the bureaucracy is kicking in. And one thing that you can't kill is a bureaucracy, and we got to figure out how we can get this done. So Corey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Campbell High School is 60 years old, right?
Just celebrated its 50th anniversary.
50 years. So it's built in 1960, what, 64?
62.
62. And one of the things that people don't understand is why don't they put air conditioning? They don't understand it's a multi-pronged approach. First of all, before we can handle the current, right, the electrical plugs literally are from 1962.
I mean, so there are a lot of problems. I mean, most of the average age of Hawaii schools is over 65 years old.
Right. And
the per capita capital improvement project budget for the Department of Education is the smallest in the nation.
You mentioned that to me once in passing. It didn't resonate. Then we met with Mr. LaRue. We are 51 out of all the 50 states and the District of Columbia. Hawaii is 51 at $200 and I think it's $92. We're $100 per student behind Kansas, which is number 50. And we have, I believe the number is close to 75 schools that are over 100 years old.
Yes.
So this is money that should go into the actual repair and maintenance and improvements into the physical plant where you teach. So what folks have to understand at home is the electric that's running through here is what they plugged in when they were watching the Dick Van Dyke Show.
That's right.
In 1964, when all you needed was 2 plugs to run the whole house. Now you have computers. But you have to have fans, box fans in there, right?
Yes.
Just to survive.
Some teachers have up to 11 fans in that classroom.
11 fans.
I had, when I was teaching 2 years ago in a room, I had 11 fans, and that wasn't enough. When you have 40 kids in a room, you know, you're thinking, but it's 1 fan for every 4 students, and they're fighting for fans.
So talk about, okay, so I want you to tell me what it's like on a hot fall day, because our hottest temp time is here September, October. Hot fall day or a hot spring day with 40 young adults, testosterone, estrogen pumping through their bodies, they're young, they're full of life. As a teacher, what are you dealing with?
One of the things that really breaks your heart is it doesn't matter about the quality of the teacher in the room if the kids got their eyes closed. And, you know, if they've been in a 90-degree room for 6 hours, your body starts to break down. I mean, you see them. They're fanning themselves. They're standing by the fans. You know, they're trying to blow their shirts. They're drinking water, whatever they can. But it only goes so far. And if they've been trying to pay attention, you see them. They're fighting. Their eyes start doing like this. And then finally, even the best students, I'm talking about our AP students, kids going off to college, eventually, some point during those hot days, they break down. Their head goes down. And at that point, there's not much you can do. And as a teacher, you're saying to yourself, you know, I want my kids to learn. I'm doing my best up here. But you understand what they're going through.
Are kids allowed, you're a teacher, but you're also a common sense guy, practical guy. And it's just, they're literally sweating. Mm-hmm. It's 90 degrees. Mm-hmm. You got 40, not only is it 90 degrees, you got 40 bodies in close proximity, right? Mm-hmm. And they're sweating. And they just want to put their head down. Do you say, okay, as long as you're listening, you can put your head down?
I mean, you're trying to do your best to keep them up. You'll try to get them. You'll do whatever you can. But eventually you do empathize. I mean, I put it to you this way. Last month on the mainland, temperatures were in the high 80s, low 90s. And states across the United States were closing down their schools. They know, and this is not just a Campbell issue, we have to think about this. I think about a 6-year-old. You stick a 6-year-old with, 20 or 30 kids in that classroom. I mean, a parent would not take that 6-year-old and leave them in a car, even if the windows are open, in 90-degree temperatures. But they'll take that same child, stick it in a classroom with 30 other kids, and leave them there all day. And it's wrong to do that. I mean, it's so wrong. On the mainland, they decided it's worth closing the school rather than making the children go through that. That's a daily occurrence in Hawaii.
So, well, I have 2 more questions and all that one. So as a teacher, you have to prepare your lesson plan, prepare your curriculum, which is no small task. And then you have to teach these students one class after another after another. You get a break for lunch, but you're on stage when you're teaching. And it's not like another job like my job here. If I don't feel up to it today, I could probably coast. You can't coast. You're performing.
No, you can't.
It's showtime, right? And I don't mean to minimize what you're doing.
No, it totally is.
It's showtime because you have to keep them engaged. And as a teacher, comes 6 period, 7 period, 8 period, at the end of the day, how are you feeling after? Is there days when your shirt is drenched in
literally,
sweat?
I would come home and my shirt would be drenched. I'd go through bottles of water a day. And studies show that the heat increases teacher fatigue. They get exhausted by the 4th period. You just don't have that energy. And so we're really, giving children a lower quality education because their teachers are suffering. And I want people to understand too, they think about the heat and they think about, well, when they're outside, you actually can feel it. You're outside, you have the nice breeze, and you walk in. The rooms that were built 50 years ago are 4 cinder block walls with 2 tiny windows at the top. 2 walls have no windows at all. And you're sticking these little furnaces in the room with these students. So the temperatures literally can rise. A teacher from Honowai Elementary took a great picture of inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And it was 6 degrees difference. So it's a hot day, it's 88 outside, it's 94 inside the classroom, plus you don't have that breeze. So literally these, what we call them, is cinder block ovens.
You bring up a good point, and it was confirmed, what you're saying, by Ray LaRue, who's talked about these old schools that were built 100 years ago were built well. They took in ventilation, and they had wind, and they have the proper ventilation, all the rest. The schools during this boom of population and transition in the late 50s, early 60s to the 70s were just slapped together. Not a lot of thought went into the architectural design. They're trying to get as many up as possible to fill the need, and they weren't done well, and they're really clunkers. And then you have the new schools, which are LEED certified and environmentally friendly, and try and maximize the use of wind and solar and these other things. So what you're saying is a fact. These schools that were built the time around Campbell, the time around Radford, and later through the 70s were poorly designed, and that comes from the DOE himself. So what you're saying is true. Let me ask you this. You've stuck your neck out. I mean, you've taken a high-profile position here. You've been the nail in the board that's sticking up, and you've made this an issue, and you've made people uncomfortable. Okay, that's why I say you're one of my heroes.
I'm just doing what I think is right.
You're doing what you think is right, but it requires courage. Have you gotten any blowback from folks without naming names? Hey, Rosenlee, cool it. You know this ain't going to happen today. It ain't going to happen tomorrow. Just cool it, man.
I think the biggest problem we're facing right now is when you talk about the morality of it, people agree and say, oh, kids shouldn't be in temperatures like that. But it always comes back to the cost. And we'll say it was just too expensive, or it just, we can't afford this.
Why are we 51?
And
I didn't know that.
And that is the point. And it's, you know, there's a larger issue here. And the larger issue is, how do we fund education? How much do we make education a priority in the state? You know, and air conditioning is just part of that bigger
symptomatic
picture. Yes,
of the underlying issue.
I mean, you know, we talk about it just backhandedly about having 40 kids in the classroom. We talk about those buildings.
What's the ideal number of kids?
Half that.
20.
About 20.
What is standard acceptable? 27?
No, seriously, 20. I mean, what's happening is, okay, let's look at nationally what the best education system is in the United States. And that's Massachusetts. They get the highest scores on the national exams. And the two things that they do really well is they pay their teachers extremely well, especially considering to the cost of living in Massachusetts. They have low class sizes. And those two things combined create these great results. But when you stick in 40 kids into a classroom, stick them into 95-degree T, and their teacher is got 1 year of experience or no experience, I mean, what do we expect? And you look at something like this 1 hour, I want to say 1 hour was the difference between a news story and a national news story. Farrington High School's auditorium, for years, had sat on the capital improvement projects. No money, no money, no money. Then the roof collapses. An hour later, there would have been a poetry festival inside that auditorium, and we would have had dead children. And that was not the first time that it happened. Roosevelt Auditorium started having its roof falling.
I didn't know that.
And
was
so,
that in the news? I didn't know that.
It was. I was at Roosevelt at the time, and things started falling down from the roof. And so this is not a one-time occurrence. And the tragedy is that we're just waiting for the next one. I mean, other buildings are falling apart. The rooms are hot. Our teachers are underpaid. We have crowded classrooms. And then when we say, well, why don't we have a better education system? You know, what is the impact of that? Those are larger issues that we need to look at.
Well, you know, one of the things, and you and I were discussing before we came on, you were going through some numbers, which the actual cost of air conditioning, because we were chatting about it at the rally last week, and then the news reporters called me and said, well, DOE says it'll cost $10 million for Campbell. $10 million? Well, if
12.5 actually. That's what I've heard.
If the DOE says that, I guess you have to trust the answer, but it sounds a little high to me. And then I ask you, geez, that sounds a little high, Corey. And I was thinking like $1 million, because if it's $1 million, that's $100,000 a classroom. 100 classrooms at Campbell, right? 100 times. Is that $1 million? 100?
So there's 100 classrooms right now. On Campbell is 150 store classrooms, and 100 of them don't have air conditioning. About 50 do. The newer classrooms in Sabre Hall, the portables that have, some of them have it, and some teachers have got in their own classrooms. So there's 100 classrooms that don't have air conditioning, and the DOE has said that it will cost $12.5 million. Pulaukea was the last school to get air conditioning. Theirs was $4.2 million for 39 classrooms. You do the math, that's more than $100,000 per classroom for an air conditioner. Now granted, that also includes rewiring of electricity, but still.
But they're not doing duct work, are they? They're not doing duct work through the buildings. They're putting these split level deals in.
No, what they did at Pulaukea was they did a central air conditioning unit. So they put one large air conditioner and ran the cool air from that. But what I want to do is...
So that's duct, then they have ducts.
Yeah. But I mean, they're digging these things in like that. But at Campbell, you can see a hodgepodge already of air conditioners. You know, one of the things I really want to do to bring down that cost dramatically is to put split-level air conditioners. And these are the air conditioners that are in many people's homes, that furnish their whole homes. Most classrooms are not as big as a lot of people's homes. They can be anywhere from 600 to 900 square feet. You know, and this gives the teacher, number one, the opportunity to turn it off when they need to. You don't have to air condition all the buildings at the same time. Teacher can turn it off when they leave at the day. You're not running it every single day. The school's only from 8 to 2:30 or whatever it is, and on cool days the teachers will shut it off. And so this flexibility allows it to occur. And so what I'm hoping is if we look at these classrooms and look at the price, when you say $1.7 billion to someone, scares them, and then they just throw up their hand and say, too big of a problem, we can't solve it. Can we bring that cost down? What if it was $100 million and we can spread it out over 5 years, and by doing that we make sure that all these classrooms across the state, we give these students a quality learning environment.
No, I think you're on the right track, and you're thinking outside the box, and you're looking for solutions, and you're trying to maximize the good ideas and minimize the objections. We have to find a way to get this done, and I commend you for doing what you're doing, because the people were talking about this years ago, and nothing gets done, and now they're still talking about it. But you're a man of action, and when you set up the rally, that was your rally. When you set it up, I told you, I said, Corey, nobody's going to be there. And you said, you know what, that's okay. We're going to get the issue out and people discussing. Sure enough, every news station was there. It was top of the newspaper, front of the fold, and you achieved your objective. So the public is aware of this, and now we need to work on this. And we are chatting. I have some ideas. You have some ideas. Whatever it takes to get this done. You're crusading for every student. People need to be mindful that Corey, his objective is not just Campbell. He wants, as a teacher and a professional, he doesn't want any student in district-wide to suffer in an environment that's not conducive to learning. As your representative, I'm focused on, well, district's important, DOE-wide is important, but I really want you and your neighbors and our children in our community to get the AC for those kids. And the good news is, if there is any good news out of this, is that the 3 of the top 4 schools on the list are all in our district.
That's right.
So that adds validity to what you're saying. It says, hey, it's too hot out here. Well, you're on the list. If I'm cynical, and let's say I'm cynical for
Go ahead.
If I'm cynical, I'm a DOE mid-level bureaucrat. We got to shut that Rosenlee up. Let's get the air conditioning for Campbell in the next budget. Get that squeaky wheel out of here. But as you've said, you already have air conditioning in your own room.
Yes, I have air conditioning.
So, and your critics point that out, you know, because they talk to me behind your back. That Rosenlee's got air conditioning. What's he bitching about? You're genuine. You care about the students. You see, well, my kids are going to learn today, but the kids down the hall with the first-year teacher in the crappy classroom, because he's a first-year teacher, they're not going to learn. Because they just ate lunch and it's 90 degrees and they're going to fall asleep. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I commend you on what you're doing. I certainly will work with you the best I can and do what I can to help you. My daughter is in 9th, 10th grade. And I mean 9th/10th. She didn't do so well last year, God bless her. So it's a hybrid, 9-10. Anyway, she's over there. And I've got 3 more in the queue. So I have a personal investment in this, a personal stake. I want to see you guys succeed. I want to see you succeed. You put so much of your time into this, your heart and soul, and it's a selfless cause. You don't get paid extra for this. You spent your own time and gas to come down here and do this interview, and I appreciate that. I thank you so very much.
I mean, one of the things I want to point out too is that it's not just our school, but there are 23 other schools that are writing down to their legislators right now. You know, and there are schools like Ilima and Kaimiloa and Ewa Elementary and Ewa Beach Elementary that these schools are also fighting because it's also their problem. You know, and what I'm hoping is that when we do have a bill and we do come back, we'll have more schools involved. You know, so that more legislators feel that is their local issue and that it's not just you pulling the weight trying to do it, but do it for all these schools.
If you can do that and you can get 5,000 kids down here, different schools, and they can all do that. That's a huge logistical undertaking. If you can do that during the session, boy, that has an impact.
We're working on it, okay?
And it's not a dead end, I'm telling you, because they'll see that, and you know, and then you put them in a place where, well, we had to do this because of that.
That's right.
And if you know where the money's going, if money is particularly earmarked for this, and there's a drop-dead date on it, you can get some unlikely allies.
And I hope so. And I hope that, you know, we've been running to legislators, and, you know, the nice thing is that some of them have taken the time to write back, and we appreciate that. And we want to make this statewide issue. We want to keep that pressure up. So we'll be back. We'll be back in February, and if we say no in February, we'll come back again in September. The question is, what is right for our kids?
It's a great civics lesson.
Okay? It is a wonderful. I mean, when I'm teaching government class, I can teach them about the legislative process, or they can come down and see the legislative process. And so for my students, this is an issue that they care deeply about. They're the ones, and there have been some great stories that they've shared. There was a student that came from the mainland, and she said, I've been in Florida, Texas, Tennessee. They all air-condition their classrooms. Why does Hawaii not? Another student that really touched my heart, he says, my dad is fighting for his country. And he says, doesn't his country also owe his son something in return for a good education? And I think that those two messages stuck out with me, that here it is that in Hawaii, does every child deserve a quality education? Rich or poor. The private schools, they air condition their classrooms. They have small classroom sizes, and they hire good teachers. Don't our public school children deserve the same? Don't they deserve to have a good teacher up there, be learning in a quality environment? And those are important things that we need to fight for.
Do you have, that sounds like a good final thought. Aside from that, do you have any final thoughts?
I just hope that if anyone watches this, they'll say this, okay? The greatest thing is to do is to get involved. Bob has been here helping us, but how about the other local legislators? Everyone needs to hear that this issue is important, and we're always recruiting, trying to get more people involved.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. This is Bob McDermott of the State Capitol. This is Corey Rosenlee. You're going to hear a lot about this young man. Well, you're young compared to me. But he is a leader in the community. He's one of those folks that just doesn't talk or complain or grouse about things. He actually gets things done. He's engaged and displays engaged leadership. He's teaching generations of children to be better citizens. And Corey, it's a pleasure to get to know you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Aloha, and God bless you all.